Beef versus Lucky Charms. How can a system meaningfully compare their nutritive value? Come with me down the rabbit hole of nutrient profiling. Nutrient profiling is the science of categorizing foods according to the nutrients they contain. And we categorize foods in different ways. We can categorize them by the food group they belong to, vegetables or fruit or nuts and seeds. We can categorize them by how processed they are. That's what the NOVA classification attempts to do. And we can categorize them by nutrient density, scientifically defined as nutrients per calorie. That's what the Nutrivore Score, the nutrient profiling method that I developed, does. And the food compass system is cool because it tries to combine nutrient density evaluations with an assessment of processing. Yes, it's not ready to be widely adopted, but it's very sophisticated and I'm looking forward to seeing it continue to be developed. But that brings us back to the thesis statement of this video. How can we meaningfully compare the nutrition in beef versus Lucky Charms? And the answer is to avoid doing so simplistically. Meaning, don't compare with just one way of categorizing foods. A nutrient density score, like the Nutrivore Score, gives you a measurement of nutrients per calorie, which is a fascinating lens through which to view food. My favorite way to use it is for simple swaps in a meal, but also for the redemption arcs, foods like iceberg lettuce that really are nutrient dense but have a reputation for being crunchy water. And if we do that, Lucky Charms has more nutrients per calorie than red meat. But then we can look at how much processing these foods undergo. Red meat is a whole food, NOVA classification 1. Lucky Charms are an ultra-processed food, NOVA classification 4. Ideally, we would limit ultra-processed food consumption to about 20% of our total calories. But what's fascinating, and why we're going to bring in food groups into this conversation, is that breakfast cereal seems to be an exception to the limit ultra-processed food consumption rule. Breakfast cereal on average is health beneficial, but that effect is largely driven by whole grain breakfast cereals, which Lucky Charms is not. But sugary breakfast cereals still seem to be health neutral. So if you have Lucky Charms for breakfast, you might be missing out on the opportunity to eat something that will overall benefit your health, but you're not doing any harm either. Now with red meat, like beef, the most recent, large systematic reviews that have done the best job of separating out the health effects of red meat versus processed meats, and the best job of accounting for healthy user bias, generally show that a couple servings per week of red meat is beneficial, and more than that is health neutral. But of course, the other reason for comparing by food groups is that tells us what types of nutrients these two foods contain. Red meat contains protein, iron, zinc, B vitamins, including vitamin B12, vitamin A, cool vitamin-like compounds like CoQ10, and especially if it's grass-fed, it contains a really cool health-promoting fat called conjugated linoleic acid. Lucky Charms contain carbohydrates, and they're fortified with, I'm not sure about iron for Lucky Charms specifically, but that's typical in breakfast cereals, and B vitamins, especially B1, B2, B3, and B9. So, is one better than the other? How about instead of determining a winner, we say what's the actual scientific truth, which is that both of these foods can fit into a healthy diet.